What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is Saturday, May 1st. Hello, May. Crept up on us a little quickly. If you're watching us on, actually, no, it's May 1st, no matter whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, because this is how we roll. We record after the draft rounds end, and we give you the latest intel on the draft. Yesterday, of course, we had a breakdown of the first round with Ryan Wilson and John Breach. We made Ryan Wilson come on here from a tiny little Cleveland hotel, drenched in cold rain, to tell us why Mac Jones fell. Fortunately for him, Bill Belichick bailed him out. But for this episode, we will be ripping through rounds 2 and 3 with our good friends, Josh Edwards and Chris Trapasso. What's up, boys?
How's it going, Will?
You don't know who's supposed to go first. See, it's whoever's name I say first. That's who goes first. That was my fault. That's all me.
Josh, I'm so used to Wilson being here that he jumps in first, and then I just follow his lead.
No, it's not your fault. It's my fault. That's my assumption. I mean, it's midnight on Friday. I think my son is asleep. My wife is absconded to Asheville with her friends to celebrate her birthday for the second weekend in a row. You can't fight it. What are you gonna do? She's like, here, you deal with the kid. You don't have a job, right? Like, let's worry about the NFL draft. Tomorrow, of course, we have day 3 coverage plus in-depth breakdowns all throughout next week and for a lengthy amount of period of time, because really this is all we've got until August. I digress. We have Aaron Rodgers. Let's get into the second and third round of the draft. It was, I don't know. It was a bad second day of the draft. There are a lot of good players taken, but I mean, Thursday was so crazy, Josh, that it felt like Friday was kind of and there were a bunch of trades early, but it felt like Friday was kind of just a meat and potatoes sort of day. Am I wrong there?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, the pace at which picks were starting to happen in the second part of day 2 was becoming very quick. I mean, it was
like a Saturday.
It was pretty tough to keep up. It did feel like a Saturday. You're right. There was a lot of comments on Twitter about the viewing experience. It was definitely not as entertaining and exciting as what we saw on Thursday.
So, Traps, would you like a 1.5 speed from if Thursday is 2 speed and Friday is, or I guess Friday is 2 speed and Thursday is 1 speed? Would a 1.5 serve the viewer better? Because I do think it was. And I didn't know if that was me. I mean, again, like, I'm dealing with one kid. It's not the end of the world. But I didn't know if it was me sort of bouncing back and forth like, hey, are you all right with that iPad? Do I need to do anything? I'm watching the draft. Or if it was really sort of the flow of it. It felt like there were 3 picks behind from the jump street.
Yeah, 1.5 speed would be perfect for the second and third rounds, because I think the NFL needs to realize that, like, everyone can get these picks on Twitter or on some social media platform, probably Twitter, at this point. So, like, if they slowed it down a little bit and actually had the picks coming in where you could watch it and you're not getting the 5th pick or like a pick that happened 5 picks ago, I think it'd be a better viewing experience. But it did get us done a little bit earlier. I don't know if people really care about that, but certainly if you're recording a podcast second night in a row, staying up until about 2 a.m, then you kind of want the draft on Friday and certainly Saturday to go a little quicker.
3 fingers. That's for 3 a.m. and the amount of each pour of bourbon on Thursday night.
So I will say this, because we kind of talked about it before the podcast, but part of what makes the draft so interesting is the conversation, the dialogue between analysts that are discussing the picks. And I feel like it's gotten to the point where they know who's going to be picked before it's actually announced, and it's not like, well, they could go this direction, they could go this direction. They already know which direction they're going to go, and they're already tipping the pick to all the viewers. So I kind of miss just the casual back and forth between the analysts that we are accustomed to seeing.
And we're not doing a full breakdown of the viewing experience, but I think this is important because it matters. And by the way, Debo on the stream with us. Debo, how you doing, buddy? What were your thoughts? Specific to each individual media personality, if you could give that on the podcast.
Oh yeah, let me just break that down in depth and criticize everybody. I mean, if you weren't watching the fantasy football draft special, I mean, we got Brady Quinn's GQ shoot on the air with him.
That was an amazing moment. It really was.
You know, Pete Prisco, some workout video of his exists out there. So that's what I was focused on. So no commentary on.
I do think that. So, I mean, again, we're not trying to criticize the media here, but the draft is a viewing. The NFL has made it very clear to the people who work for the companies that broadcast the draft and to the people who work with the NFL that don't broadcast the draft that they want the picks to be played out on television. And I don't know. Anyway, we don't need to get into the weeds on this, but if it's being broadcast on ABC, like let's have a couple different broadcasts. That ABC broadcast is for the general fan. That NFL Network broadcast should be for the hardcore tape grinder, person who loves, Ali Marpet and D2 guys. Anyway, this is a dumb tangent. We'll get off of it. I'm sure that I have messages from people in Slack that say, please shut up and move on. So let's get to the second round. Tyson Campbell, by the way, this is how obvious it was. Tyson Campbell was minus 500 to be the pick to the Jaguars, and the Jaguars were minus 550 to draft a cornerback about 6 o'clock. It was unbettable. They take Tyson Campbell there. We see Elijah Moore come off with the second pick there. Javonte Williams, third to the Broncos. Javon Holland, the first safety of the board in the entire draft, to the Dolphins at 36. Landon Dickerson to the Eagles. The Patriots take Christian Barmore, who had a monster playoffs for Bama, but has been up and down and only played, I think, like 35% of the snaps. Tevin Jenkins to the Bears. Richie Grant to the Falcons. Hello, Falcons, 8-1 to safety in the second round. Someone named Levi to the Lions, and then Liam Eichenberg to the Dolphins. If you're looking at these early second-round picks, Josh, which one of those really pops out to you as man, I love that fit. I love that player. I love how this played out for this team.
Well, I love the Elijah Moore pick by the Jets because similar situation to what we've talked about nonstop about Sam Darnold on this podcast. One of the issues with him not having success in New York was that he was not surrounded with enough talent to be successful. So I've been really impressed with what Joe Douglas has been able to accomplish on the first 2 days of the draft this year. They went out, they got Elijah Vera Tucker yesterday, arguably the best interior offensive line prospect in this class. And then you come back at the top of the second round and you get Elijah Moore, who has tremendous speed. He's going to give them a youthful infusion at the wide receiver position to go along with Corey Davis. But this probably spells the end of Jamison Crowder in some capacity, which is going to save you some salary cap space as well.
Well, that was a fantastic segue because I had the Jets listed as a slash winner with another team just because I wanted to talk about them because I think they've done Joe Douglas to me has done, and Traps, you can speak to this because you're a Bills guy, but what the Bills did with Josh Allen was build up this infrastructure and then drop the quarterback in there and allowed him to grow inside the infrastructure. And you see the success he had. The Jets drafted Sam Darnold the same year that Josh Allen was drafted. And we're like, hey, figure it out, bro. By the way, here's Adam Gase and no wide receivers and a terrible offensive line. But good luck with that. So, of course, it didn't work out. I think Joe Douglas has done a sort of Billsy kind of job in terms of building things out. And I love, and this is a humble brag, but I was on with Jim Rome on Friday. It's definitely a humble brag. And I was like, the Jets moves, but I was like, this is what you do. When you take a quarterback in the top 5, you don't then say, oh, we need to draft 5 defensive linemen. No, go out and help your guy. Give him weapons, give him offensive linemen to grow with. Make things easier for your quarterback. And I think they did that, Traps. And so I'm a big fan of the Moore pick here. And I don't know if it definitely spells the end of Crowder just because I think it's like $10 million in terms of salary cap. I think you're probably onto something, Josh. But just because he's a security blanket, they might keep him around.
Yeah, Elijah Moore, to me, I think is a more explosive version of Jamison Crowder. We know Crowder is probably one of the more reliable, like strictly slot receiver, like can average 8 or 9 yards per catch, and that can be a good season for him. Elijah Moore can stretch the field vertically. And I think if you watched Zach Wilson's film, you saw that he does like to push the football down the field, Corey Davis isn't really that type. I actually like Keelan Cole as a sneaky, like, depth wide receiver for them. So he certainly has done a good job, Joe Douglas, building the infrastructure. I still think the offensive line, even with Elijah Vera Tucker and Mekhi Becton, could use some more players up front. I think there's more, journeymen up there on that offensive line. But with what he's been able to do first 2 or 3 rounds, he's prioritized offense and building a good environment for his quarterback. And my new theory with the draft, when in doubt, go offense, because you got to score 30 points a game if you want to make the playoffs and go deep into the playoffs. And the Jets have been nowhere near that for a very long time.
I muted myself. Looping back to those early picks in the second round, Traps, is there somebody that stood out to you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, tell me who stood
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Richie Grant from UCF, who went to the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know why Javon Holland was the first safety off the board. He's not a great athlete, although he had a lot of ball production. Richie Grant was a first-round safety for me. I mean, in terms of doing everything that you need at the safety position today, covering the slot, ranging from the deep middle, playing that robber role in the middle of the field, coming downhill to stop the run. That's Richie Grant. I mean, he's a little bit of an older prospect, but a lot of ball production. I think 10 interceptions over the last 3 years at UCF. Had a great Senior Bowl, tested well. Like, I couldn't really find a legitimate flaw for him on film. So a first-round prospect to a Falcons team, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the Falcons have had no-name players on defense since they were in that Super Bowl. Like, have they had a star outside of Grady Jarrett? They need a playmaker. And I'm not going to say that Richie Grant is going to be an all-pro as a rookie, but they needed playmakers. And I think that's definitely what Richie Grant is, can play so many different roles on the back end in Atlanta.
One of the things that stood out to me in the early picks was the Carolina Panthers trading out of where the Bears at 39 took Tevin Jenkins, and everybody in Carolina was like, "Whoa, are we gonna take an offensive lineman here? We take an offensive lineman here? What are we doing? Like, what's happening?" And then they trade out and get a 3rd-round pick, and I think people were pretty worried about it. But I actually had the Panthers, and we're going to dive into winners and losers. I have the Panthers as one of my winners here, and I didn't see, as my son likes to say, didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming because when they traded back multiple times on Friday, it felt like they were ignoring the obvious weakness that they had passed over in the first round, which was offensive tackle. Greg Little, there are a lot of people who believe he won't be on the team next year. So I guess it's Cam Irving, but maybe it's Brady Christensen, who, by the way, might be as old as I am. I think he's like 24. He did the BYU mission.
Yeah, he's an older BYU. Yes, he's an older BYU prospect, not like Zach Wilson.
But, man, I got to tell you, I think I like the J.C. Horn pick personally. Now, if the Bears are good with Tevin Jenkins and Justin Fields, Panthers fans are in a hellscape because they could have had Justin Fields and Tevin Jenkins without doing anything, just sitting there and making picks. But I like the J.C. Horn pick in day one. And then Terrence Marshall at 59, that guy's a first-round talent easily. No one questions that. He had medical issues. That's the only reason he was there at 59. The Panthers traded down twice and scooped up Terrence Marshall. And the key thing here for me is that Scott Fitterer and Matt Rule and David Tepper, by extension, are trusting Joe Brady's relationship with Terrence Marshall to know that. He coached him to a national championship in college. You have to assume that if Terrence Marshall is telling Joe Brady that he is fine from a medical standpoint, that the Panthers then have an advantage in terms of getting Terrence Marshall at a discount. So they get him, they trade down again, they pick up Brady Christensen at 70, and then Tommy Tremble, a blocking beast, at 83. I like what the Panthers did in day two, and I didn't think I was going to like it. I thought I was going to pencil them as losers for not getting an offensive lineman, and they did, Josh.
Yeah, I like what they did as well. They were one of the contenders for my winner on day two as well. Terrace Marshall, like you said, has a history with Joe Brady. I mean, if Joe Brady is willing to sign off on possibly adding him to the offense, then that's as big of an endorsement as you need if you're making that decision. To add him with Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore to that offense, you're giving Sam Darnold some of the weapons that he never had in New York. and giving him a fighting chance to be successful. So I wasn't a big believer in the smokescreen that they could possibly take a quarterback on day one. But man, I mean, the investment that they've made around him, I think Sam Darnold is not going to have any excuse if he's not successful in Carolina.
I mean, Traps, he's got a better setup right now than he had. It's not even close.
Way better. And what's good too is that his best wide receiver, the guy he had the most connection with, Robbie Anderson, is there in Carolina. That was probably part of the reason why the Panthers were okay and to kind of greenlight that trade, because they knew that they were going to pair Sam Darnold with Robbie Anderson. What I do like, and I kind of felt similarly to you, Will, that I was like, why are they not picking an offensive tackle? It's a gaping hole. I think they realized, and it was a good show of patience by a first-time GM and Scott Fitterer to say, hey, it's a good offensive tackle class. There's depth. We can trade down. He knew the board. There was still a lot of other offensive tackles to still get one on day two and not force the pick, and to get Terrace Marshall there and not pick an offensive tackle where you wouldn't be able to get Terrace Marshall later on day two. So I think it was good draft navigation, usually trading down, getting more roles at the table when you're kind of a rebuilding team is smarter than just making selections throughout the draft. So for a first-time GM and a relatively young new head coach, I think they did a good job.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that the people think the Panthers wide receiver depth. I've been saying this on the podcast for months now. People think the Panthers wide receiver depth chart is good. It's not that good. Robbie Anderson's in the last year of his deal. DJ Moore is in the last year of his deal until yesterday, or until, if it's Saturday, until Friday, I guess, right? Or Thursday when they picked up an option. So he's got 2 years left. They still have to work out that contract, which is going to be complicated because he wants top 5 money or top 10 money. And I don't know if they're going to give it to him, even given his age and production. And then their third guy is David Moore. So they needed a wide receiver. This helps them out in negotiations and in terms of talent. All right, Josh Edwards. You not only you just got snaked by Traps. He picked your team as a winner, but I'm going to get to your winner first. Who did you like? What did you like on day 2 that you saw from an AFC West squad?
Yeah, so we were kind of sniping some early winners in day 2, and immediately the Chargers jumped out to me as a big winner because I love Asante Samuel Jr., the value that they got in him early in the second round. I think he's a perfect fit for the type of system that Brandon Staley is bringing over. Well, I should say over to Los Angeles. He never left Los Angeles, but that Vic Fangio style defense where, Asante Samuel Jr. is going to be allowed to press a little bit and get his eyes back to the quarterback and make plays on the football. Just a really great fit in that scheme. I would have loved if they had a shot at J.C. Horn in the first round, but Asante Samuel is a very good consolation prize. And honestly, I didn't really need to see what else they did in day 2 because I was so excited with the addition of Asante Samuel. I think that's a fantastic pickup. Wide receiver Josh Palmer is a guy that has gotten a lot of buzz since the Reese's Senior Bowl. He's been very highly discussed among the draft community. A lot of people love him. I wasn't as high on him as others, but good value depending on who you listen to at this stage in the second round. And then finally, Trey McKitty, who's a very athletic tight end, never really got the opportunity to showcase his full skill set at Florida State, transferred to Georgia, who also did not showcase him to his full skill set. So it may not be until he arrives in Los Angeles that we're able to see what he's able to do on the football field. I think he's got a tremendous skill set and could be a huge addition in the absence of Hunter Henry.
I was shocked by Asante Samuel falling to 47. I understand that he's not like what is the knock on him that he's smaller?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yes.
You're telling me
that's it. And he
No, go ahead. Tell me. I
was going to say he played. No, I mean it's definitely that he's smaller, but you watch him in the ACC.
No, I just want to hear
5'10".
I want to hear strictly weaknesses. Traps. What are his weaknesses?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know because he was my number 2 corner in this class because he plays bigger than his size. But I think there are scouts and GMs and coaches out there that see 5'10", 185 and think, oh, he can't be a first-round pick. He's not tall enough. I want my corners to be sudden and twitchy, can stay with wide receivers down the field. That's Asante Samuel.
All right, so here's my sort of thing on Asante Samuel. And I feel like this should be more obvious. I'm not a draft junkie. You guys are draft junkies. You guys grind on tape, you talk to people, and you're awesome at your jobs. Asante Samuel, his father was a Pro Bowl cornerback. His son is a cornerback coming into the NFL who played for a Power 5 school. Sure, Florida State sucks now somehow because that's a whole different story. But they get prospects, and Asante Samuel is a good prospect, and he's a ball hawk. It's not the same as TJ Watt because that was JJ Watt's brother. But when are we wake up and realize that, like if TJ Watt's in the draft, don't let him drop to the mid-20s. If Asante Samuel's in the draft, don't let him drop to the mid-40s. That dude should have been a first-round pick or an early second-round pick. I don't get it. Yeah. He's a ball hawk with a father who played at the NFL level. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. So you're going to ding him because he's short? Like, what are we doing here? 60% of the actually 75% now. 75% of the snaps every single game are run with 3 wide receivers. So you have a bunch of short, tiny slot dudes out there. What are we doing? Draft a guy whose dad was an incredible athlete at the pro level. And it's not just because he's pick 6. We were asked in the chat, is the Chargers secondary the best in the NFL if Derwin James is healthy? We're looking at a situation where Derwin, Chris Harris, Nasir Adderley, and of course now Asante Samuel. They did lose Casey Hayward this offseason. I don't have my personal offseason secondary rankings in front of me. I haven't put them out yet, but it's pretty good.
It is pretty good, and they're certainly in contention for that spot. I do think you have to consider Derwin James's health when factoring in which team might have the best secondary. I think Traps is actually going to discuss one team that may have the best secondary after some of the moves that they've made this offseason, a team that I guess we can. It's the Browns. The Browns have made a lot of additions to the secondary this offseason.
Josh, did you just segue to your winner? What a beautiful job!
Yeah, I mean, I was
the guy with a newborn child who's like, "Get me off this podcast. I won't sleep." Brilliant. Go.
I was trying to get the Traps' winner, and I was going to let him kind of pull back the curtain, but I just couldn't. I couldn't dance around that. It was too difficult to explain what they've been able to do this offseason without mentioning them by name. But they've added a lot of talented players, a couple of really talented secondary players from the Rams, in addition to getting Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who's going to have tremendous impact on that secondary. And then you get Greg Newsome in the first round as well, and I think that was really good value. So before I take any more of Traps' talking points away, I'll give him the floor.
No, that's completely fine. I mean, you're the Browns guy, so I wanted to even ask you before we recorded, like, can I steal the Browns? Because I really, really liked what they did. Because Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was my number 1 highest graded defender in the entire class, number 10 overall. I didn't see why. I mean, talk about ridiculous knocks on a player because he's too small. Darius Leonard admitted after the playoff game against the Bills, I was there, that he played at 218 this season. And this is Darius Leonard, who already is one of the most athletic and fastest linebackers in the league, came into the league in the 230s. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is like 6'1", 215. He covers like a safety, reckless abandon, chasing running backs, can beat blockers, super sudden, fast. I think he is the safety linebacker hybrid that people wanted Isaiah Simmons to be, but he's almost too big. Like we said that Zaven Collins on a previous podcast, too big at 270. You don't want someone 6'4", 245. That's too big for today's NFL. I don't know why Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah dropped, probably due to size, but to get Greg Newsome in round 1, then get him in round 2, and then even Anthony Schwartz, just to be a niche down the field wide receiver. And even if he's just running clearing routes to open up things underneath for Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, Kareem Hunt in the pass game out of the backfield, I think the Browns have done a really good job filling needs on the defensive side in free agency early in the draft. And then with it, Anthony Schwartz pick to add just another dynamic to their offense.
And let's not forget they got a popular musician named Machine Gun Kelly. Is that who it is? I took a video of it, but I didn't know who the hell that guy was.
Come on, Brinson. Step your pop culture game up.
You know I don't know who Machine Gun Kelly is.
He's dating Megan Fox. If that.
What?
Wow, good for him.
What?
Good for him.
The
Yes,
Browns
that guy. That
Yo,
guy.
he's like, I'll see you 2020, see you tomorrow night, and in 2022 when the Browns win the Super Bowl. I'm out, and dropped the mic and walked off. Like, what are you doing? And
Cleveland super fan.
you know what? Wait, what?
He's a Cleveland super fan.
Oh, they said he was an Eagles fan. I was like, why did he yell at the Browns?
That's what I thought he said too. Yeah.
So I had somebody who replied to me, was like, man, nobody gives a, he used a bunch of F words, but he's like, nobody cares in Cleveland about winning a Super Bowl. We got titles on end. It's like, yeah, what are you doing?
What
is happening? You ever won a title? You've never won a Super Bowl, and you haven't won a title since '64. Like, it's like me. Like, well, I don't care. NC State won a basketball championship in '83.
And Cleveland's a football town. Like, they care about the Browns more than anything else.
I want the Browns to win a Super Bowl. Badly. So,
yeah,
John,
it'll be fun.
I'll ask you this: is Machine Gun Kelly right? Did this draft launch? Oh, by the way, I point out so we like to go scuba diving with my parents, and one of our dive guys down in that where we dive, he has for the last 20 years put $100 in the Browns win the Super Bowl every single year. He's like, I'm just gonna keep doing it. One day it's gonna hit. It might not, but maybe it will this year. Is this it, Josh? Is this the draft that launches the Baker Mayfield MVP Browns Super Bowl championship season?
Well, it is all on Baker Mayfield because obviously he's got some athletic limitations that some other quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes do not. Well, so, he's very reliant on his arm. You never know when health is going to come into the equation as well. So it's difficult to say they're going to win the Super Bowl or even be in the mix because, I typically try to.
I was mostly asking about the draft class, but I mean, do you think they're going to win a Super Bowl this year?
I think they're going to be in the mix. I try to steer clear of all this unbridled optimism because it's kind of uncomfortable for me as a Browns fan.
I can go a step below, being someone that was raised in the Bills household. Bills Browns AFC title game next January. It almost happened a few months ago. I really think listen to it, mark it down right now, right after the draft. Maybe I'm a little delirious because I've got 4 hours of sleep last night. I'm going to get 4 hours of sleep and have my daughter wake me up at about 6:45 in the morning tomorrow. I think Bills Browns AFC title game in 2021, 2022, I guess.
I'm fully prepared to wake up. I'm fully prepared to wake up on my couch and go with my son, standing over me, holding an iPad, beating.
That's how that's what's going to happen to me too.
Because you get done, you got to decompress for a second, and then all of a sudden you're just dead asleep on the couch. Anyway, the Browns, we just gave the Browns the Super Bowl. I think the most impressive thing about the Browns, Josh, and this reverberates into the draft, is that finally my boy Jimmy Haslam, fired up to the max, he's gotten out of the way and he's let his people do things. Brent R. Pointer asked, what did I miss? Did MKG get drafted? Who drafted him? I hope not the Bears. Who's MKG?
All right, that's my fault.
Machine Gun Kelly, I think.
MGK is Machine Gun Kelly. But he doesn't play tight end, so no, they didn't draft him.
You flashed something in my face. I'm going to read it.
Yeah, that's on me.
No.
He's like Ron Burgundy from Anchorman.
No, 100%. I mean, it's on me, but yes, I mean,
right.
Diva should have learned.
I should know better by now. At
any rate, Josh, what do you think about the Browns draft? Is the simpler version of the question.
So I love the first two picks. It's hard to get better value than Greg Newsome II, as well as Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I'm going to wait and see with Anthony Schwartz because he does have tremendous speed. I have some concerns about him as a pass catcher, running routes, all of the stuff that's associated with it. So I thought it was a little rich to be taken at that point, but we had already seen a run on these, smaller wide receivers with tremendous speed like Tutu Atwell, obviously Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore. Those guys were going off the board quick. So if you did want to get in the mix, you had to get one of those guys. overall, if you're ecstatic with your first 2 picks, which I think all Cleveland fans should be, it's tough to get a better draft than that. So I think, through 3 picks, it's about as good as it could possibly be if you're, a Browns fan.
All right. So we go from the Browns are winning the Super Bowl, which you would think would be the hottest take on the planet, except it's not, because Traps has it beat. And we're in the Slack channel, we can say Slack on here. We're in the Slack channel. And Traps, what you said, you know what? I would like to prop up and actually, this is good for our brand on this podcast, Frank. We need this. I might start inviting Las Vegas residents to come on this podcast. You have the Raiders as a winner on day 2.
Yes, absolutely. And I never thought that I would ever say that and submit the Raiders as a winner. But what's funny about them, and they've kind of started this since Mike Mayock joined that team as their GM a few years ago, it's like they pick someone in round 1 and then they pick someone in round 2 that's at good value. So if you just flip those first 2 picks, you're like, okay, if they would have picked Alex Leatherwood at what pick? 43, and then Trayvon Merrick at number 17 overall last night, everyone would say, wow, the Raiders did such a good job. They filled the safety need with a rangy.
That is correct.
So, and what was funny is after the Alex Leatherwood pick last night, John Gruden and Mike Mayock were like, hey, we don't care what the draft analysts say about where Alex Leatherwood should go. It's like, Mike Mayock, you were a draft analyst for like 15 years. Like you were a draft analyst who turned into a GM.
You got hired because you were a good draft analyst, bro.
Yeah, so that was really weird. But on day 2, Trayvon Merrick, the consensus top safety among guys like Josh and myself, and anyone, I mean, it was hard to find anyone who didn't have him as the top safety. Javon Holland, even my guy Richie Grant went in front of him. He can do it all. The ball production was there for 2 straight seasons at TCU. Anything you need from Richie Grant, you can get from Trayvon Merrick. And then after that, and maybe there's a little hometown bias here, Malcolm Kuntz from Buffalo, University of Buffalo. I've watched him play. One of the bendiest, most flexible edge rushers in this draft class. He's coming from the MAC. He's got to get stronger, definitely. Very long arms, too. And I thought it was interesting that he got invited to the Senior Bowl. Couldn't really work out because he was injured, but there's not very often where there's a lot of University of Buffalo players down there in Mobile, Alabama, at the Senior Bowl. I think he's a good developmental rusher, can be that stand-up, old school, like 3-4 outside linebacker. And then Divine Diablo after that, safety linebacker hybrid. I thought after Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he was the best safety linebacker hybrid. And all these safety picks are kind of washing away that Jonathan Abrams selection 2 years ago in the first round that I did not like because he's only good against the run. With Divine Diablo, Trayvon Merrick, they got 2 good coverage safety types that can also play in the box. So I think if you flip Alex Leatherwood and the safety from TCU, you're like, hey, the Raiders for once, at least to this point, have actually done a good job in the draft.
I'm not. Look, I don't.
You don't like it?
I don't disagree with the Leatherwood mooring take at all. And I just don't want to say anything bad about the Raiders. For Josh, do you have anything bad? You know what? We're not gonna refute it. Trap said it. The Raiders are awesome. The Raiders are killing it. Great job, Raiders. Woo, Vegas. Go Gruden. Go Mayock. While we're leaning in, you know what? Let's just lean on in to this podcast brand. Let's find our teams, the teams we love. Josh Edwards trying to. Debo's back. Wait, is this your winner, Debo, or Josh's winner?
No, this is Josh. I'm just prepared for some
slide in like Collinsworth. Hey, hey, girl.
Yeah, so I went with Philadelphia as my winner, which actually came as a surprise to Debo. I like the Milton Williams pick. I think he's a good player. He flashes a lot of potential. We don't see it consistently enough, but a guy with tremendous pass rush potential to help out that Philadelphia defensive line. I like the pick. It was obviously not well received by everybody in Philadelphia's own front office, but maybe Debo can offer some insight to the video that went viral this evening.
Well, before he does that, do you guys know the Kardashian gif where she pops out of the bushes like, hey, and like it's just there? That's what Debo just did. It's like all of a sudden Debo's just like, hey, like stroll through the bushes. So Debo, all Are you? I'm not trying. I'm not trying to bury that. I am worried about the Eagles. I don't think they've had a bad draft at all. I don't know enough about Milton Williams to be happy or sad that somebody wouldn't give Howie Roseman a fist pound. I think the Landon Dickerson pick was a good one, and Devontae Smith was a great move. So I think the Eagles are doing fine. I think they're probably the fourth best team in that division still, depending on what Jalen Hurts does. But where are you at on the Eagles draft?
I'm in a good spot with the draft. I think.
Have you read The Athletic piece yet?
I pushed it off still. So maybe that's why I'm not like overreacting to this.
What a happy world we live in.
Mishap that we can call tonight. We need like an official nickname for that moment that might go down, might not go down in Eagles history. Brinson, I'm sure you could come up with something there. I don't really care. Like, I don't appreciate Howie Roseman. You guys know that over the past couple of years. Appreciate what he did in 2017. I've made that clear, but I don't care about the moment tonight. I'd be more concerned if the guys in that office were like afraid to voice their opinions to Howie Roseman. Like, I disagree with Brinson all the time. Like, coworkers can disagree, but it doesn't have to mean absolute dysfunction. And I'm not saying that there's like zero semblance of dysfunction in that front office. There probably is, but I'm not overreacting to that clip. Like, they could have been talking about anything at that moment. It's just like the cameras captured it. The scouts should have known that cameras were probably rolling. But I'm not overreacting to that. I think some people do have an issue with the second round pick, Landon Dickerson, because of some like severe injury problems in the past. But Josh,
no way. This guy is a monster.
Everyone loves him.
This is what
Everyone
you
loves
want. The guy. If you're a football guy, you want Landon Dickerson in your corner. That dude, Nick Saban, paused the title. It was a title game, right? It was a title game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he stopped the title game and was like, no, I'm getting my guy a snap out there. And he comes out with a broken leg or a torn ACL or whatever the hell it was. And he walks out on the field and he snapped. They have to get him in there. That is a glue guy with elite talent. You put that guy with Lane Johnson, you're talking about dogs. Like Chris Long dogs.
Trust me, I am absolutely with you, but I like taking the risk at that position in the second round, and I think that's what the organization has to do. But there is concerns there. Sidney Jones was a guy the Eagles drafted a couple years ago that was a first-round talent. People thought he could be a top 15 guy and had injuries and didn't pan out. I think that's kind of the fear for Josh and Chris. Like, where would Dickerson potentially could he have gone if he was fully healthy or at least a little less of those health concerns?
I don't want to speak for the draft guys, but I would say I think Dickerson was definitely a fully healthy Dickerson is a first round guy.
I was asking
in this
top 15. Is he going in that range?
Top 20.
Josh?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're betting on health, and again, this comes back to, and this is, I think, part of the evaluation of an NFL draft or a specific team's NFL draft. It's very difficult because you're trusting Howie Roseman that he has enough. For instance, I mentioned with the Panthers, Joe Brady knows LSU very well. LSU is going to feed him whatever the hell he wants. They'll give him any information. Bill Belichick and Nick Saban do, sweater vest specials on HBO all the time. If Bill Belichick calls down to Alabama, he's going to get whatever he wants. Is Howie Roseman getting everything he needs in terms of the information about Landon Dickerson? Are the scouts getting everything they need? Are the player personnel guys getting everything they need? We don't know that. Would you rather have so like Landon Dickerson or Christian Barmore? Landon Dickerson or Tevin Jenkins?
Well, there's apparently injury concerns with Tevin Jenkins too. My only concern with him, with Landon Dickerson, outside of the injuries, because you can never really project future injury. I know he had a bunch in college. Is that this dude is 6'6", 338 at the Alabama Pro Day, and maybe like he gained a little bit of weight because he can't really work out. He's not playing center at 6'6" and 340 in the NFL, and I think. To get super nerdy, I think he's a little stiff. I mean, he's huge. Like, is he a guard? He played all 5 positions at Florida State and Alabama. So I think, like, in terms of versatility and that dog mentality that Kyle Long and Lane Johnson really made famous there in that Super Bowl run, like, I think he has that. but I never got on board with this as like this slam dunk of a top 15 prospect.
Chris Long, both Long brothers, technically friends of the podcast, but
yes, name drop again. I like it.
No. The Long brothers are just straight up friends. I mean, I don't know if we're friends, but I mean they're friends of the podcast. For sure. Long brothers.
Yeah,
I like talking about MMJ with Chris Long all the time. Anywho, the Eagles draft. So you're cool. Where do the Eagles slot out? And you know what? Maybe where do the Eagles slot out for you in the NFC East right now?
I don't think there's a lot of separation between any of the teams. And like last year, I think agreed with me because of the continuity, benefits that the Eagles had. We thought they would be at the top of the division. That obviously did not pan out.
Carson Wentz would morph into Joey Harrington.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Or whatever.
Now it's kind of reversed where they are kind of pegged at the bottom, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're 9-8 and make the playoffs.
That sounds terrible. 9-8, by the way.
Yeah. I hate it.
I would be surprised if they went 9-8 and made the playoffs, but that's not that crazy, I guess. I like what the Giants in Washington have done. We will hit losers in a second. Before we get there, I want to point out that the final winner, man, I like what the 49ers are doing a lot. Is that crazy? Am I crazy, Josh? Or Traps? Either one.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, go ahead. You had the thought. I need to look to see what they did.
I didn't really like what they did. I didn't really like it, but go ahead, Will.
Okay. I don't know that Ambry Thomas, who I've scouted for years, or Aaron Banks are necessarily elite prospects. But I just feel like Kyle Shanahan's gearing up for something. Trey Sermon is a perfect 49ers running back.
Yes, that's true.
Kind of early. Like that dude is a one cut and burst through a hole and obliterate you to the end of the earth. And maybe if Jimmy G gets hurt, I wouldn't be that surprised if they fashioned some sort of read option offense with Trey Lance and Trey Sermon. Oh my God, they drafted two guys named Trey. That's kind of weird. Would they call it like the Trey option?
There you go. Trey option. Yeah, Trey option. There you go. Trademark it.
Guy's named Trey. Anywho, yeah. I don't know enough about their second and their second pick and their fourth pick, Aaron Banks and Ambry Thomas. So you guys can tell me about them. I just think when I start thinking about this 49ers, they bring in Alex Mack, they bring back Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, maybe Trey Lance, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo, and you toss Trey Sermon in there, who all of a sudden could be not. I mean, a third round pick is nothing. It is something, but it's a third round pick on a running back. That's fine. This is where the Shannon clan make their money. You plug Trey Sermon, as explosive as he is off that, like the one cut. I think Trey Sermon, if you're talking about fantasy purposes too, is probably he's not gonna be top of the mind running back or top of the mind wide receiver. You can grab him in the first round of your dynasty leagues, and he might go 1,200 yards rushing this year.
Yeah, he definitely is the right fit in that zone blocking scheme. I'm just surprised that Kyle Shanahan picked him in the third round, because like it feels like whether it's Mike Shanahan or Kyle Shanahan, they can take like an undrafted free agent and turn him into a 1,000-yard running back. But this is with Trey Sermon, and this is the one thing that I agree with, that he is like way more talented than some of the guys that they've run through there that they have gotten good production from. So you could see in a year or two that Trey Sermon is like a 1,200-yard back because of the vision and the explosion. Aaron Banks does not fit the zone blocking scheme. Their second pick there in the second round, or their first pick in the second round, he's big, wide, he's kind of built like a fridge. Not someone that's going to get across line of scrimmage very well. And I like Ambry Thomas, very fast, good in press man, but not very physical. Did they need corner after losing Richard Sherman? Yes, but it was just a little bit weird for Kyle Shanahan to say, hey, we need a running back here in the third round. But like you were just outlining, Will, like it's not really a team that has a ton of needs. I mean, they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Getting back Nick Bosa will be pretty helpful this year too. So maybe they're more of a, hey, let's just pick best player available. So I didn't hate it, but I wouldn't have picked it as a winner. Maybe talking through it, I feel a little better.
I guess their running back group is not you always feel like their running back group is good. I mean, they're basically down to Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Plus, they signed Wayne Coleman. Sermon could be their guy, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looking through it, I see it pretty similarly to Traps. Aaron Banks is probably a little bit too rich to be taken where he was, but I like the value on Sermon and Ambry Thomas quite a bit. That Ohio State offense likes to run a lot of stretch plays through the wide zone. We saw it a lot last year with J.K. Dobbins, and I think that's going to be a good fit in Kyle Shanahan's scheme in San Francisco. So they have been churning through these, undrafted free agents or lower tier, free agents off the street. But now you bring in a really dynamic player who, has shown flashes of big playmaking ability, although inconsistently. I mean, his best season might have been 2018 at Oklahoma before he transferred to Ohio State. So he's got a lot of potential, but, you have to be a little bit aware of the concerns of inconsistency as well.
I will point out that I got this text from my buddy Nathan who said, "You're a Shanahan sycophant." like, you just suck up to the. I'm not sucking up to Kyle Shanahan. I just think Kyle Shanahan's really good at his job, and
he is.
He is. He's good at his job.
Yeah.
And I don't deny that. So, man, I look at this offense. I don't know where to go in the NFC West. They're pretty wild. The whole division. I feel like I love the Rams. I love the 49ers. I don't want to fade Russell Wilson. Cardinals have my heart a little bit. Ooh, man, I love that division. All right, let's take a break. When we get back, losers from the day 2 of the 2021 NFL draft. All right, Traps. I like that you were willing to go out on a ledge because I feel like the Dolphins kind of been banging it, and yet you are going to hammer the Dolphins for being a loser while I put down my headphones and go refill my glass with ice.
All right. Well, this is a lot based on the fact that Debo told us going into this podcast, we're going to lean day 2. So it's not really about what they did on day 1. I love Jalen Waddle. I loved Jalen Phillips. So what they did on day 1 is not part of this pick for the Dolphins being a loser. And I promise it has nothing to do with the fact that I was raised in a Bills household in West New York. Javon Holland at number 36 overall. I think his 9 interceptions at Oregon in those 2 seasons there was a little bit misleading. A few of them were like tip passes or just kind of punt returns where it was like the quarterback just throwing the ball up at the last second. And I don't think he's super athletic to cover in the slot. There was a lot of times that I saw him look a little bit stiff when he actually had to cover someone deep down the field. So I like the instincts, but when Trayvon Merrick was still on the board, my guy Richie Grant, Andre Sisco from Syracuse, someone who I think is much better at literally being a ball hawk on the football field. I didn't really like that. And then Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. And I get that Notre Dame has a great reputation, especially on the offensive line with Zach Martin, with the Ronnie Stanley. I almost forgot his name there for a second. And a lot of other players that they're just pumping out from Notre Dame on the offensive line. I think Eichenberg is kind of similar to Javon Holland, that he's a good player, a good football player, but I'm worried about him athletically. And I don't know if he's going to play guard or right tackle. They said that they're moving Robert Hunt into right guard. So I think if you leave Liam Eichenberg on an island at right tackle, he's going to face some problems when he's dealing with like more explosive and bendier edge rushers. And then Hunter Long, I don't hate this selection and to give Tua another pass catching target. And he was very productive at Boston College, but he's not someone that is going to separate very often. And I think the 57 catches in 2020 was more a function of AJ Dillon was gone and there was really not a high caliber wide receiver there. So they pumped him a lot of targets. But I do think he has good seam stretching ability. Like he's decently fast. I just thought that especially those 2 picks to start off day 2 with Javon Holland and Liam Eichenberg, technically sound, but not a great athlete. When you have to protect Tua Tagovailoa, the offensive line is a weak link system. If you have one bad offensive lineman, it can really spell trouble for the whole unit. And if they're going to run Liam Eichenberg out there as a rookie, I think that's going to cause some problems for the development of Tua. That's obviously really, really important in year 2.
I will say, Josh, that I just sort of had this feeling the Dolphins are doing great. And then you kind of look at this, you're like,
Yeah, that's
No, I'm saying like I don't disagree with you, Traps. I'm wondering, Josh.
yeah, that's how I feel too. Yeah.
Do you agree or disagree with the approach here or the take here?
I agree with Traps. I mean, as much as I love Javon Holland, I thought it was a little rich. Much as what we talked about with the last team, but I love Holland. I love his communication. I love his leadership. He's got the ability to play the slot. He's got the ability to be a safety. I love his versatility, but it just felt like it was a little bit too early. Now, it could have been a reaction and maybe an overreaction to the fact that Javonte Williams was taken just before their pick. Maybe they were hoping to get that final running back of the top three. Liam Eichenberg, I wasn't as big of a fan of. He's got a lot of athleticism, just like Samuel Cosmi and some of these other offensive tackles that have been taken on day two, but they're very unpolished. So I was just uncomfortable taking those guys on day two. Hunter Long, very solid player, has been productive throughout his career at Boston College and could be a very popular target for Tua Tagovailoa. But I just, he's similar to what they've already got. So, I mean, I don't love it. There's a couple players that I like. It's just the value just didn't feel like it was there.
All right, Josh, while we're leaning into podcast themes, we're not talking about the Bengals. Oh, my God. We're freaking podcast. We haven't talked about Andy Dalton. It's delightful. We're talking about the Steelers, who you've got as a loser. Day two, no loser overall. They drafted a running back in the first round. I'm sure that, they're fine.
Yikes.
Yeah, you didn't have to be specific. They're just kind of a loser overall. Najee Harris, I just, from
Edwards colon, Steelers are losers.
From a philosophical standpoint, I don't generally agree with taking a running back in the first round, specifically when you have almost zero offensive line. I think the offensive line has to come before you can worry about a running back. That was my biggest issue with Najee Harris. Going into day two, we thought they were going to get some of those offensive linemen. Instead, they start with Pat Freiermuth, the tight end from Penn State, who I do like as a prospect, but this offensive line just needs so much help, whether it's an offensive tackle or interior offensive line. Now, they did swing back and get Kendrick Green, who has the versatility to play center or guard, but I wasn't as high on him as maybe some other people. So I don't like overall what they've done. I think the Najee Harris investment is probably not going to pay off unless they're able to find some other creative ways to fix this offensive line.
For a very, there was this, for whatever reason, the last couple of years, Steelers have been on Sunday Night Football, you hear Chris Collinsworth, this is a team that pounds the ball and they just dominate the physical run games every time the Steelers would play. So I would say they dominate the physical run game. They hadn't been doing that for years.
Not anymore.
But what the hallmark of the Steelers had been for the last 5 years plus, I mean, even dating back, dating back to like maybe 10 years. I'm old as crap because David DeCastro was a first-round pick in 2012. Oh, well. Look at Ryan Wilson joining us on the podcast, lying in his bed, trying to watch The Office on Netflix, and he can't help himself. He's got to do some YouTube. His day two loser. People who think the Steelers are losers, these all caps. This is a very old thing to do, is to type in all caps. They crushed the draft, suckers. Kendrick Green is a future Hall of Famer, and everybody knows it. If you look at the Steelers' offensive line, that was the key to them trying, Ryan, to beat the Patriots and Ryan failing constantly, is that they had a good offensive line that Le'Veon Bell ran behind that protected Big Ben. It's gone. It's, in the words of Vince Carter, it's over. If Vince Carter walks off the camera, it's over. It's over. This line sucks. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. This offensive line is history, and they didn't address it. And instead, they drafted a running back. This doesn't feel very Steelersy. I'm with you. These guys are losers. What are they? Am I going to be right after all? And they're going to finish last in the AFC North this year? I'm doubling down on this thing. Let's double down. Steelers, losers, and they will finish dead last. Also a loser, Aaron Rodgers. Surprising? Perhaps. But if you look at what the Green Bay Packers did, this is the funniest thing in the world to me. The Green Bay Packers So they took Eric Stokes, who I had going to Green Bay in my mock draft. Hello. And had the under on for a substantial amount of money. Yeah, hello. In the second day of the draft, they take an offensive lineman because they need one. Josh Myers, as Traps notes in his notes, ready to go center. This is basically a Corey Linsley replacement. And then I cannot believe this is real life. They drafted Amari Rodgers. They drafted A. Rodgers in the third round. So while Aaron Rodgers is in the middle of throwing this publicly vented hissy fit that was an absolute nuclear bomb, Adam Schefter got this information before a commercial. He told ESPN, on the day of the draft, he told ESPN to go to commercial. Do you know how effing lock solid you have to be on a monster scoop to tell your network to go to commercial and you'll break it when you come back? This was a absolute drone strike from Aaron Rodgers at the Packers on draft day. And so the Packers' response, first they pee themselves and act like it's not a big deal and draft Eric Stokes. And the second day, I don't know if you guys have seen the South Park. They're like, we're sorry. Sorry, Aaron. Our bad. They drafted a new center and a wide receiver named A. Rodgers. This is amazing. So I think Aaron Rodgers is kind of a loser because the Packers are going to do whatever it takes to get him back. And he's not going to get what he wants, which I don't think we really know. So Traps, do you like what the Packers did on day 2, I guess is my question.
Definitely more than what they did on day 1. I mean, when this nuclear bomb landed, everyone thought, oh, geez, like this whole brass there in Green Bay, they have to go wide receiver in round 1, and they pick another corner when they already have Jair Alexander. I know Kevin King re-signed and had some struggles there in the NFC title game, but everyone's like, oh my God, they're really just trying to give the middle finger to Aaron Rodgers after this huge report surfaced an hour before the draft. On day 2, though, to get a replacement for Corey Linsley and get kind of this, not Randall Cobb type, but underneath slot receiver that can be someone that Aaron Rodgers can find high percentage throws where he doesn't have to just pepper Devontae Adams with like 200 targets. I think now Aaron Rodgers actually has a little bit more power. And finally, the Packers are like, oh, yeah, we have this future first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best quarterbacks ever. Like, let's start to get him a better team. Like all the graphics of all the first round picks that they've used on defense and defensive linemen and corners in his tenure. I think they finally smartened up and they're like, we are getting close to being the front office that trades Aaron Rodgers. So we need to draft guys on offense. So I didn't really hate as much as what they did in round 2 and 3 as what they did in round 1.
So it's really not even like Aaron Rodgers is a loser. My twisted brain finds way to, he's a loser. He's gonna come back and the Packers helped him out. But another loser, Josh, the team that would be trading for Aaron Rodgers, the favorite to trade for Aaron Rodgers if he didn't come back to the Packers, the Denver Broncos. You have the Denver Broncos as a loser in terms of day 2 action. How come? Javonte Williams is a stud, by the way.
So would Aaron Rodgers have to wear A.A. Rodgers on the back of his jersey now that Amari is there? Is that why he's a loser?
If they make him do that, then he's a loser. If they make
exactly.
There you go.
I'm thinking maybe
Wilson's out, Josh is in. That's the funniest thing. That's funnier than anything Wilson said.
Maybe they're trying to put Amari in a number 12 jersey and just hoping Packers fans don't realize he's gone.
What if they were like, Aaron shows up to camp and it's like A. Rodgers and then parentheses 2 on the quarterback's jersey. Just a absolute spite move.
Oh, he's wearing number 8.
Well, they should have been 12, or it should have been at 2. I mean, and then I don't know. I like Amari Rodgers. Anyway, Josh, you think the Broncos sucked this on day 2?
Yeah, sucked might be a harsh word. I love Javonte Williams, the prospect. I'm just wondering what they're doing. I mean, you signed Melvin Gordon last offseason to a pretty substantial deal, and then you turn around and you invest another high pick into a running back after you let Phillip Lindsay go. I understand it was quote-unquote mutual, but to invest a high second-round pick in a running back after you've already got a quality back on the roster, It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't seem like good roster building underway there in Denver.
They traded up for him too.
I really like Javonte Williams. He's a stud. He ripped NC State apart. I'm a little annoyed that for some reason when you click the trade button on the CBS draft tracker, which is fantastic, it doesn't tell you the details of the trade. I feel like they kind of paid a big price and they jumped up. And I mean, 35 is one of the first 3 picks in the second round. Some scout, some dude, somebody in the personnel department was banging the table for Javonte Williams. And I do agree with you. Why would you? They're doing this. It's this dumb thing where they went from John Elway to George Patton, and now it's like John Elway had to pay Melvin Gordon, and now you draft. It's just consistent for the love of all that's holy. Traps, you have another AFC team that a loser. This is a surprising one, I think. No, I'm not saying it's bad, but the Indianapolis Colts and Chris Ballard, who has been frankly smashing drafts for the last 3 years.
Yeah, one other thing just quickly on Javonte Williams and just a draft philosophy. Trading up for a running back is never a good idea. It's just not. To spend 2 or 3 picks, regardless of where they are on a running back, even if it is in round 2, it's just not good team building, like Josh said. I don't like what the Colts did because they drafted 2 edge rushers, and they traded for Carson Wentz this offseason. And if anyone watched Carson Wentz the last couple of years, I think Debo can chime in at any point. You know that he needs quality offensive line play, and that is a gigantic need for the Colts at left tackle. Anthony Costanzo retired this offseason. You pick Kwity Paye in the first round and think, okay, they're going to have the same philosophy as, say, the Bengals. They're going to pick another player and then go offensive line early in round 2. Then in round 2, they pick, I'm not the best at pronouncing his name, Deo Adenigbo, the edge rusher from Vanderbilt, who's a good player, very heavy hands, like big physical guy, tore his Achilles in the pre-draft process. So he's almost like a red shirt type. He's not even someone that's going to come in and pair with Kwity Paye right away. And you just ignore the left tackle spot. And now entering round 4, there's not a ton of like instant starters at the left tackle spot. Maybe they want to sign like Ali Villanueva or something like that. But I think if you bring in Carson Wentz, you can't just ignore the left tackle spot and just hope he magically gets really good under pressure in year 6 or whatever he's in.
So that's actually interesting because it segues into my loser for the second round of the draft. I think I actually chatted to you, but it said San Francisco. I meant Jacksonville, not San Francisco, because Trip Baalke, the former San Francisco GM, now running Urban Meyer's front office in Jacksonville. Do you know what? Are you guys have been doing this for a while, but do you know that like Trip Baalke's deal? Do you know what his deal is? Are you aware of like his thing? Because this is
like to trade down a lot with the 49ers.
No. This is a weird thing. Debo, get me. Let's get Walker Little and Andre Cisco in.
He drafts guys that are injured.
He drafts guys with torn ACLs. What the hell?
Yes, he did that a lot with the 49ers.
Why is that your thing? Who wants to draft guys with torn ACLs?
They drafted Marshawn Lattimore or Marcus Lattimore and Brandon Thomas back in the day, and like neither of them like got on the field ever because they were like super injured.
I'm going to call Kendrick. It's not Kendrick Bourne. Street. Contavious Street had a torn ACL in the draft process. He took him in the 5th round. Look at this. Walker Little, Walker Little, major injury. Andre Cisco, torn ACL. Why? This is the stupidest thing in the history of professional football. Why is your thing to draft guys with torn ACLs? 49ers beat writers are tweeting out like, hey, if you're looking for Trent Baalke's torn ACL count, it's up another 2.
It's weird.
It's the opposite of I'm done with it. I don't get lost on words much, but if your thing is drafting guys with torn ACLs, you're just a dollar store drafter. That's all you are. You're not a talent evaluator. You're a dollar store drafter. You're looking to find some Jim in the weeds who tore his ACL, and you're hoping that he gets healthy. This is insane.
Yeah, it feels like he thinks that he's cornered the market, but I think in general,
he's
like almost every other team.
have debilitating knees.
Yeah, that it's like every other GM is like, oh, this is an injury red flag. We're not going to pick this guy, or we're going to pick him way later. And he just every draft 2 or 3 other players. I didn't think of it right away, but then I remembered that was a thing that like beat reporters in San Francisco are like, there's another guy, Marcus Lattimore, great running back, but like shredded his knee twice in college. It's very weird. I don't understand it. I mean, Walker Little and Andre Cisco are good players, but if that's your thing, if you hired a guy and he's like, I'm going to draft injured guys, that's very weird.
Well, and he wasn't even – he was already in Jacksonville, and they just promoted him. Josh, would you be cool if Trent Baalke and Urban Meyer were running the Browns right now?
Not at all. I wasn't a fan of the Urban Meyer hire. And some of the comments that he's made in the media in recent days about Travis Etienne being a third down back that you apparently felt comfortable taking in the first round is a little confusing to me. But then Trent Baalke with his past was just, it's very mind-boggling. I'm
literally biting my shirt not to interrupt you. It's insane. Like what are we doing? I think I'm sure that I'll end up.
And what did Urban Meyer mean when he said we want to be top 8 in the league? Like that was another thing where I was like, does Urban Meyer think that he has some formula that if you finish top 8 in running in today's NFL, then like you're in great shape? It's after you just drafted Trevor Lawrence and you have good receivers. Like that was such a weird comment from front to back.
And so I think Kirk Herbstreit is as good as it gets at his job. I am not in like criticizing Kirk Herbstreit, but Kirk Herbstreit went to Ohio State. I think Kirk Herbstreit's probably pretty close to Urban Meyer, who coached Ohio State. Yeah. To, whatever. Kirk Herbstreit went on the first day of the draft and said, Urban Meyer's going to change the culture. And I mean, you have to assume he's getting this from Urban Meyer. He's like, Urban Meyer's going to change the culture because he's going to get a culture where you have better players than your opponent. That's not how the NFL works. The reason I'm so irate about this has nothing to do with the fact that I've got 2 hours of sleep and the draft is going on. It has to. They're going to ruin Trevor Lawrence. This team is going to ruin Trevor Lawrence, and I am already mad about it. If they Andrew Luck this guy, I'm out. I can't. My whole mom's whole family's from Jacksonville. No, shoot him to the moon. Put him on a rocket ship and shoot that giant geographical city to the moon. Brunswick County, you're gone. Duval County, you're gone. If they ruin Trevor Lawrence because Urban Meyer thinks that he can magically flip the culture via drafting or getting better players, you're not recruiting, man. That's not how it works. Travis Etienne, not a third down back. You don't hire a guy who drafts people with torn ACLs. This screams worse disaster than the Jaguars regime before. Sorry, I'm a little worked up here about the Jaguars. I don't know why. The point being, I think the Jaguars have a problem on their hands.
And one thing I don't get is that every time where there's a big name college coach who goes from college to the NFL, I mean, maybe outside of Matt Rule, he doesn't seem to be too crazy with his ego. A lot of them, like Chip Kelly and I think like Urban Meyer, think that like because they're in college, they know the draft better because they were just recruiting these guys and that they're going to be the czar of their NFL team. And they're going to, like you're just saying what Herbstreit said, bring in, just better talent and have an advantage all the way across the board. Just does not happen in the NFL. And the whole, like, they know the college game, so they're going to be better in the NFL draft. I think that's a complete fallacy.
All right. We're going to wrap on this. 3 quarterbacks were taken from 60 to 70. So quarterback run. Kyle Trask to the Bucs at 64. Kellen Mond to the Vikings at 66. And Davis Mills to the Texans at 67, which oddly led the NFL Network's coverage because apparently Deshaun. I mean, I don't know. We don't know what is going to happen with Deshaun Watson, but it was turned into a big deal on television. If you had to pick, Josh, one of these guys in their current situations in 5 years who are going to be the most successful, who would you take?
Well, that's a complicated question because the player that I would pick based on talent is a different answer than the player that probably has the best chance to succeed. So
let me rephrase it. Who's the best fit for the franchise that drafted them?
So the best fit for the franchise that drafted them would probably be Kyle Trask. He's already been playing in Florida. He's underneath Tom Brady, who would, by all accounts, be a tremendous mentor as he's trying to learn the game. He's not going to be thrust into the mix anytime soon. So Kyle Trask would probably be in the best position. But I think if I had to think back to our rankings, I think Traps and I both had Davis Mills as that sixth quarterback.
So
but I'll actually go with it. I mean, to give that same answer or to answer that same question, Kellen Mond, to me, I think in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson there, what they've done on their offensive line, I really like how they built up the offensive line. Christian Darrisaw and Wyatt Davis with Brian O'Neill. Garrett Bradbury's kind of a turnstile at center. I think the Vikings ownership is kind of fed up with Kirk Cousins. So, like, yeah, Davis Mills is more talented, and Kyle Trask learning under Tom Brady, like that's a fantastic scenario. And right now, the Buccaneers are like the team to beat, of course, bringing back everyone after winning the Super Bowl. But I think 3 to 5 years down the road, the Vikings, especially on offense, I think are a little bit more set up for a third-round pick quarterback to come in and be a Dak Prescott type, to not be an early pick, but ultimately be a good starter. And I think kind of that's how Kellen Mond kind of plays. Like, he's good inside the pocket, decent athleticism. I don't think he's going to be Dak Prescott 2.0, but projecting forward, I would bet, to kind of bring it back into Will's realm here, I would bet that Kellen Mond would be the most likely to succeed over the next 3 to 5 years.
I do love the idea of of Mike Zimmer. It's like he's like, I can't wait to get rid of Kirk Cousins.
Oh, he can't.
We're going to throw Kellen Mond out there. Would be great. All right, give me one or two each. Josh, we'll start with you. 1 or 2 names each. Best available day 3 that you're thinking. And it doesn't have to be first off the board. Just guys you want to see, guys you would want to be drafted by the team you love.
So 2 guys that I like probably a little more than the majority are Jordan Smith, the edge rusher from UAB. Tremendous length, some good bend around the waist. And then I like Hamilcar Rashed Jr. from Oregon State. I think he is playing out of position at Oregon State, similar to what Joseph Osai was in 2019. He's played more of a off-ball linebacker type role. But I think if you allow him to be an edge rusher and get after the quarterback, that's probably where he's going to find the most success. So although they may not show up, at the top of best player available or, even be talked about until later day 3, it may be 5th or 6th round before we start discussing either one of those guys. I think both of them have a lot of potential.
By the way, huge win for me too. I saw Sage Surratt on there. So, brother of Chaz Surratt. If Chaz Surratt gets drafted ahead of Lee McNeil, I'm out in the lawn just lying in my grass crying as my dog barks over and over and over again. Traps, who are 2 guys that you want for the Bills in day 3?
Actually, one of the guys that I was going to pick, if you didn't put that Bills caveat on it, Daz Newsome from North Carolina. I know you're an NC State guy, Will, but I know you've watched
a lot of guys are awesome.
A lot. Yeah, but I know you've watched a lot of UNC football. Daz Newsome, to me, I think in terms of he brings kick return ability, and that translates to how he plays the wide receiver position. He is so dynamic after the catch. And in that Notre Dame game where they gave Notre Dame a pretty tough contest, Daz Newsome, I thought, was the better wide receiver than Dimey Brown, who went last night. I think he is someone that projects very well to the modern day NFL. He can get open. He doesn't have the best hands, and he didn't test very well. He reminds me a lot of Deontay Johnson of the Steelers. He went to Toledo, didn't test well, but looked faster and more sudden on film, and has been a pretty good receiver that went later. But like Josh said, he could go in the 5th or 6th round just because of the testing and because he kind of took a backseat to Dimey Brown this year. And then Jamar Johnson, the safety from Indiana. A lot of what started the Justin Fields plummet, or that he doesn't know how to read defenses, or he can't get off a second read, a lot of people were citing that Indiana game. And Jamar Johnson had an interception of Justin Fields in that game, another pass breakup. I think he's got great range from the deep middle, and it is hard to find rangy safeties that can just sit there like an Earl Thomas and get to the sideline. I don't think he has that type of speed, but his range is really good, and he's a striker downhill. So I think we saw a bunch of safeties go off the board. Jamar Johnson is someone who really gave a very fast and talented Ohio State group a lot of troubles just roaming the deep middle. And I think it's a good value to find someone like that on the third day of the draft.
All right. 6 hours tomorrow. Have you guys done the you know what? I don't like the fact that it's not at Radio City Music Hall anymore.
I know, man.
I love the Radio City. You would spend 6 hours. I only did one. Because in 2012, I think I went down to Fort Lauderdale. Like the coolest thing of my career, or one of the coolest things, was that I just happened to get hired by CBS. They're like, "You're going to the draft."
Yes.
That was weird. It was the Panthers. The Panthers are the first pick. It was Cam Newton. But I mean, like the Saturday Radio City is the biggest, weirdest grind of your life. You feel like you're in a Vegas casino, but with no gambling and no alcohol, and just it's like some guy was saying over the microphone, "There's a trade on the 7th round pick." So I kind of miss that. Kind of wish they would still do it. But you guys are grinding hard as hell. Just did 90 minutes on here with me, and you deserve a break sometime Sunday. Josh Edwards, Chris Trapasso. Thanks, boys.